Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today we are going over 1984, Chapter 3, Part 4. Oh, so close to being done. Excited to talk about this part. Relatively short. This will be a quicker episode. Last time we spoke about the conversation that Winston and O'Brien had, where it kind of, I don't know, reminded me of a back and forth between Socrates, I think, and like Republic, where they're just like having this conversation back and forth on what Oceania and the party is all about. And we found out some things about the party, about Goldstein, the supposed opposition. Looks like it wasn't really an opposition. And everything is orchestrated by the party, even this Goldstein figure, even Goldstein's book. Those ideas are from the party. I think to just further, I think it's to expose the people who don't really truly believe in the stuff of Big Brother. To find those people and then to put them in the ministry of love for rehabilitation. But we found out an answer to there's the two questions of the how and the why. How the party is doing the things. Winston already knew that. Well, Winston found out in Chapter 3, Part 3, from speaking with O'Brien, was more so the why. And the why is pretty much just power. The thing that sticks in my mind is O'Brien saying power is not the means, power is the end. They want power just to have power, basically. Power over matter and mind. That's how you really control people, is kind of what O'Brien was getting at. Let's jump into Part 4 here. And Winston seemingly has gone through a lot of rehab. Chapter 3, Part 4 starts off with Winston is getting back up on his feet. He's starting to feel a little bit better. They've put him in a more comfortable room. He's growing stronger. It says he's growing fatter, so he's no longer that skeleton-like figure. They've given him new clothes. He now has the ability to wash himself so he doesn't stink. Remember, last part, O'Brien was saying how much Winston stinks like a goat. Well, now he's somewhat decent now. They have given him something to write on. Kind of interesting. A little bit of pencil and a tablet. But it sounds like pretty much asleep most of the time. He's just been asleep, dreaming. He wakes up for his meals. Oh, yeah, he's getting like 3 meals a day now. So they're actually feeding him. He's dreaming. It says that he's dreaming. One of his dreams is he's in the Golden Country, sitting among enormous, glorious, sunlit ruins with his mother, Julia. O'Brien's there. And remember, he's had this dream of the Golden Country before, back in, I think it was Chapter 1. He sees Julia coming out of the field. Winston is pretty much, I think the word to describe him here is he's just been satisfied. He's content. He's no longer in pain. They're giving him food. He's just perfectly at ease with his current situation right now. And Winston starts to go through some re-education. He's pretty much capitulated. He realizes that all the actions and his thoughts about down with Big Brother, running around with Julia, trying to overthrow Big Brother, joining Goldstein's movement, it was all, it was all just like fantasy. Like he realizes the shallowness of his actions and that it really was all for kind of nothing. And he really shouldn't have done it. Ultimately, he's like, why did I even try this? It was never going to work in the first place. The party knew everything from the start. He mentions, too, how he knew now that for 7 years the thought police had watched him like a beetle under a magnifying glass. They knew everything. There's this detail back from chapter 1 where he puts that speck of dust on his diary that he's writing down, like down with Big Brother. Like right after he writes that, and he puts the speck of dust on it to make sure that he would know if somebody opened it up. He said of whitish dust on the cover of his diary they had carefully replaced. They knew that. They've known what he said, even when he's not in the presence of a telescreen. He knows where him and Julia went and met out in the countryside. They knew about that room he rented out. They've even seen him and Julia having sex. It's inferred. They've even seen that. So they knew everything. They knew everything from the start. Now it's time to re-educate him. So he starts to write. He uses that pen and the tablet that he has in that room, and he starts to write some things down. Complete opposite of what he's writing down in the diary back in like chapter 1 and 2. So he starts to write, freedom is slavery. And then he starts to write down 2 and 2 make 5. So already his re-education is taking place. He's starting to accept the thoughts of the party. He then writes down God is power. And it then reads on page 287 here, he accepted everything. The past was alterable. Next slide. East Asia was at war with Oceania. Jones and Rutherford were guilty of their crimes. He never had that photograph. Laws of science were nonsense. Everything's just in your head. What in the mind truly happens. And he's saying, if I wanted to float off this floor, I could float off this floor. All the happenings are in the mind. Whatever happens in the mind truly happens. The fallacy was obvious. It presupposed that somewhere or other outside oneself there was a real world where real things happen, but how could such a world exist? Everything's just in my mind. Reality is whatever Big Brother tells me reality is. He is accepting everything at this point. Earlier in chapter 3 on what is Crime Stop? It's where once you start to have contradicting thoughts or thoughts that are dangerous, you stop them right away so you don't explore them any further. And he's starting to do that here. He set to work to exercise himself in Crime Stop. He presented himself with propositions and trained himself in not seeing or not understanding the arguments that contradicted them. And it's not easy. It needed great powers of reasoning and improvisation. It needed all sorts of athleticism of mind, an ability at one moment to make the most delicate use of logic, and next to be unconscious of the crudest logical errors. He is pretty much kind of bought in at this point. Then we see on page 289, a statement is reverberated where O'Brien says everything depends on yourself. Everything depends on yourself. So his rehabilitation, the time it takes, it's all dependent on you. And remember, O'Brien places the blame on everything that's happened to Winston back on himself, which is kind of interesting because the party holds the power over Winston. He's telling Winston, you need to take some responsibility, kind of, which is kind of like doublethink in a way, because can Winston really help it? Can he really take responsibility for it when all the actions and the things that he's done throughout the book, in the end, the party knew it all along, and yet here's O'Brien saying, oh, well, you should have done better. I don't know, maybe Winston just hadn't been rehabilitated correctly the first time. Right? Because it seems like this has happened multiple times. This whole play from start to finish has happened multiple times to Winston, potentially. So he mentions here on page 289, the one certain thing was that death never came at an expected moment. The tradition, the unspoken tradition, or hang on, sorry. It was perfectly here it is. It was perfectly possible that before he was shot, the whole drama of his arrest and interrogation would be enacted all over again. The one certain thing was that death never came at an expected moment. So his arrest back in his room, that in things before that, this could all be replayed again until he gets it right. But if he keeps getting it wrong, he's living in this like Groundhog Day scenario where he's living like the same 7-year period of having these thoughts, meeting O'Brien, wanting to explore Goldstein, buying the diary, meeting Julia, having that relationship with Julia, etc. But in the end, they will shoot him. So why are they rehabbing him then? And I wonder if shooting him is like a metaphor for something else, or if they will just actually shoot him. But then again, it's like, why go through all this painstaking process of rehabbing him unless the party really wants you to really buy in? And I guess O'Brien did talk about this back, what was it, chapter 3, part 2 or part 3, where he said, you know, that was the problem with the Russian communists, German Nazis. They didn't go far enough. People still died hating them. Like the people that they burned at the stake or like executed and stuff. They were still martyrs. And I think in a way here, maybe they don't want Winston to become a martyr. They want him to truly buy in before they kill him, so that they even have him bought in at death. When you would think that, hey, I'm about to die anyway, you know, to hell with you guys. I'm going to think what I want. No, they want him to buy in even at death. So that could potentially be something. Again, the dream of the Golden Country pops up. Julia appears. And he's having this really intense dream where Julia is not only there, but she's like inside of him, and he's screaming out like, "Oh, Julia, like my love. Oh my gosh." And then all of a sudden he thinks, "Oh my God, I should not have dreamt that." She starts to become fearful because although he's buying in his mind, and he's starting to think, "Oh yeah, Crime Stop is a good thing. Oh yeah, freedom is slavery. 2 and 2 do make 5, and laws of nature, it's all in my head. The past is alterable," but still, and this is where O'Brien comes in, he's surrendering in his mind, but not in his heart. His heart is still with Julia, and it should be with Big Brother. So O'Brien is going to come in here in a second, but Winston is trying to keep the secret. So this secret of he still has that kind of hatred for Big Brother. And he's like, man, if I could just keep this deep down in the dark depths of myself, I'll be able to hold on to it for a later date and just put on this face that I actually like Big Brother. I'm totally with the party. As long as you think and say everything, all the things you need to. Remember, that's what Julia had taught O'Brien. Hey, I just say this stuff. I don't actually believe it. I just want to run around and have fun, but you do have to put on like a camouflage, kind of. And Winston actually mentions here, I guess to go back to a point that I had just made on the last slide, to die hating them, that was... So he wants to hold out just long enough to that day where he does die, so he can die still hating them. Because then in the end, he would win. But the party doesn't want that. This is where O'Brien comes in at 292. very end of the chapter, chapter 3, part 4 here. All these thoughts that he's having, the party knows. There are no secrets here. O'Brien comes in and calls Winston out and says, hey, you've had thoughts of deceiving me. And you know that you're not supposed to do that. But he says you are improving. Intellectually, there is very little wrong with you, says O'Brien. It's progress. And then he asks him again, do you love Big Brother? And Winston says, no, I hate him. And O'Brien says, good. We're making progress. And the time has come for the last step of his rehabilitation. You have to love Big Brother. You not only must obey Big Brother, you have to love him. And it's mentioned here. He motions to the guards and he says room 101. So it seems like he's about to go back to shock therapy, kind of. And maybe that's why they will ultimately still shoot him, because they want him to die not with the freedom to hate Big Brother. They want him to die loving Big Brother. Discussion question, just one. Is shooting Winston inevitably because the party does it to everybody, or is it because Winston still holds some deep-seated thoughts? We've kind of touched on this, so what your thoughts are on this question, I will put a link to the blog. You can check out my response to this question at Chee-Tash.ghost.io, but I'll have a link in the description and stuff. Guys, thank you very much for listening this far. We are so close to the end here. We've only got like 2 more episodes. 2 or 3 more. The last few chapters are the last couple chapters here are pretty short, so I think only 2 more episodes left. It's been a journey, and thank you guys so much for being there with me on this journey. Until next time, my name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care.